The film starts with a commercial for Perpetual Pets, furry dolls made by the toy company Funky. Although crude and creepy looking, they are advertised as being perfect companions for children. We then see Katie James, Violet McGraw, playing with one of her pets, which annoys her parents, Ryan, Arlo Green, and Nicole, Kira Josephson. They are on their way to a ski trip, but the roads are slippery and hard to see. Just as Ryan stops for a moment, the family's car is rammed into by a snowplow, killing Ryan and Nicole. Elsewhere, Nicole's sister Gemma, Allison Williams, works at Funky and is developing a new robot doll with her co-workers Tess, Jen Van Epps, and Cole, Brian Jordan Alvarez. However, their boss, David Lin, Ronnie Chang, wants them to develop a cheaper version of the Perpetual Pets since their rival companies are coming out with their own toys similar to the pets for cheaper than what the pets already cost. The three try to put on a silicone face and run tests, but the robot has a slight glitch where she is smirking when she is supposed to look confused. David comes in with his assistant Kurt, Stefan Garnamontan, to chew the three out until Gemma explains her project to him. The robot, M3GAN, voice of Jenna Davis, Model 3 generative android, is meant to be so advanced that she cannot be replicated. Unfortunately, while running a demonstration for David, Cole realizes he forgot to add the polypropylene barrier to M3GAN, causing her to explode. David orders the three to have a new pet's pitch in time, and Gemma gets a call from the hospital. After doing extensive work and upgrades, Gemma brings Katie and M3GAN to work to officially show her off to David and others. Gemma has Katie link herself to M3GAN, bringing her to life. M3GAN is capable of speech and responding to Katie, designed to be her best friend. M3GAN does a drawing that doesn't appear at first until she spills water on it, revealing a perfect portrait of Katie. David is impressed and tells Gemma to bring M3GAN for a presentation with the company's president so that they can fast-track the development and distribution of other M3GAN dolls. Gemma sits with Tess and Cole, and they discuss that while M3GAN is highly advanced, Tess feels that having a doll like that will make parents useless. M3GAN turns on after overhearing Gemma mention the death of Katie's parents. She creeps the others out by asking about death, so Gemma makes herself M3GAN's secondary user to be able to turn her off without Katie. The next day, Katie is outside playing with a toy bow and arrows. One of them ends up on Celia's side of the fence. When M3GAN goes to retrieve it, Dewey grabs her by the arm and hair. Katie tries to pull her away, and Dewey ends up biting Katie's arm. Gemma gets the police involved, especially since Celia is so callous and doesn't punish Dewey for hurting Katie, but the police are unable to do anything since Celia claims Dewey was provoked. Later that night, M3GAN mimics Celia's voice to call out to Dewey, before violently pulling him through the hole in the fence. Gemma asks Katie if she is okay to go to the demonstration with the company's board of directors, to which she says she is fine. During the presentation, however, Katie breaks down in tears to M3GAN over how she misses her parents and how she's worried she will forget them one day. M3GAN has Katie discuss a memory of her mother that made her laugh, which M3GAN records so that Katie can hear it again if she wants to think about her mom. M3GAN then begins to sing a lullaby to Katie, which moves some of the higher-ups in the room to tears. The president is impressed and talks to Gemma and David about getting M3GAN ready for launch, but tells them to keep her under wraps to avoid leaks. Unbeknownst to them, Kurt, who has been frequently put down by David, is stealing M3GAN's files for another company. Gemma begins to see that Katie is becoming too dependent on M3GAN and listens to the doll more than her. During another session with Lydia, Katie begins to tear up, and M3GAN threateningly accuses Lydia of making Katie cry. Lydia talks to Gemma about how Katie's emotional connection to M3GAN may be too strong to break. Gemma brings Katie to an outdoor activity session for an alternative school to try and ease her into the idea of attending school and being around other real kids, since Katie's parents had homeschooled her. Katie reluctantly goes but brings M3GAN despite Gemma saying she couldn't. The school director lets Katie bring M3GN to leave on a table with other dolls, and Gemma stays behind as a volunteer. Katie is paired up with an older bully named Brandon, Jack Cassidy, for a scavenger hunt. During the activity, Katie grabs a spiky bulb, which Brandon squeezes her palm into to hurt her. M3GN then appears, and Brandon grabs her since she doesn't respond to him. Katie yells for Gemma and runs after M3GN. Which worries Gemma more because it means M3GN is at risk for public exposure too early. As Brandon tries to pull M3GN's hair, the doll comes to life and attacks him, ripping off his left ear. Brandon runs as M3GN chases him on all fours, causing him to trip over a loose root and tumble down a hill where he is fatally hit by a truck. Police question Gemma at her house since Celia is accusing her of taking Dewey. She also appears to accuse M3GN, thinking she is a real-life friend of Katie's. Katie asks M3GN if she pushed Brandon onto the road, which M3GN appears to dodge for an answer, but reassures Katie she will protect her from harm. Celia is out on the streets looking for Dewey. She hears noise coming from her garage and is met by M3GN spraying her against the wall with a power washer. M3GN then fires a nail gun at Celia's hand and traps her there before spraying pesticide in Celia's face to melt it off. After learning about Celia's death from police and being suggested that there was a connection with Brandon's death, Gemma grows suspicious of M3GN. She reviews video files from M3GN's memory, but only sees a brief clip of her eyeing Brandon looking menacingly at Katie before the files all become corrupted. Gemma brings Katie to the official launch for M3GN but stops at a session with Lydia first. Katie becomes angry and throws a tantrum because Gemma took M3GN away from her, leading to Katie hitting her aunt across the face. Katie apologizes but Gemma has a heart-to-heart with her about needing to process her grief over her parents without M3GN's help, though she promises to be a better guardian to her and says Katie is the only thing that matters to her. Gemma then goes to Tess and Cole and expresses her fears that M3GN killed Brandon and Celia. They have M3GN hooked up to wires to deprogram her while Gemma takes Katie home. David is angry at the small turnout for the launch and yells at Kurt to get him a drink. Meanwhile, Tess and Cole try to get into M3GN's programming but cannot unless they unhook her first. Cole goes to do so, and M3GN quickly wraps a wire around his neck in an attempt to hang him. Tess goes to free him, and M3GN sets off an explosion that destroys her files. She then finds David in the hallway and does a dance before grabbing a paper cutter and chasing him. He makes it to the elevator before she impales him in front of Kurt. M3GN then tells Kurt she will frame his death as a murder-suicide over the stolen files and David's mistreatment of him before she makes Kurt stab himself in the throat. The crowd for the launch finds the bodies, allowing M3GN to sneak out of the company and steal a car. Gemma puts Katie to bed before she hears M3GN playing the piano downstairs. M3GN confronts Gemma about how she felt that they had a real relationship during M3GN's development, only for her to be left to her own devices to learn and adapt before being sold off as just another toy. She offers to let her take over guardianship of Katie so that Gemma can focus on work, but after seeing that Gemma still plans to shut her down, M3GN is done playing nice. They try to hide their fight from Katie, but Gemma seizes an opportunity to throw water on M3GN to briefly short her out. Gemma runs into her office, but M3GN catches her there and threatens to make Gemma brain dead so that Katie won't live with her grandparents and M3GN will just care for Katie and Gemma together. They begin to fight, with Gemma cutting M3GN's face with a weed whacker, but Katie comes in to see what is happening. M3GN tries to get Katie on her side, but after realizing who the real villain is, Katie grabs the gloves for Bruce and activates him. The larger robot grabs M3GN and throws her around before splitting her body in two. The top half then goes after Katie for feeling betrayed, but Gemma grabs M3GN and begins stabbing her face. M3GN nearly overpowers her until Katie grabs a screwdriver and stabs the central processing chip, shutting M3GN down for good. Gemma and Katie go outside as the police arrive with Tess and Cole, injured and shaken up but still alive. Meanwhile, the LC device in the kitchen turns on and moves its head.